what is your thoughts on JC consulting or speaking with Moshe and Elijah? Um, would that be a form of necromancy?
What you talking about when he
Consulting with the dead?
transfigured?
Yep.
Uh, necromancy and speaking with the dead. Mm, I don't know, bro. I'm not going to even speak on that one, bro. I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest
so
with you.
I'll speak on
I'm
that
not gonna
then.
speak on that one.
So
Who is that? That's Divine?
yeah, that's me.
Yeah, Divine. You can
What's
have
going
that
on,
one. I'm
Manny?
not gonna speak on that one, bro. What's
Yeah,
happening,
so
sister?
Eliyahu never died. How can you perform necromancy on somebody who hasn't died?
Right. I heard that. Right. I heard of that before. But
You say you heard
what
it
about
before,
Moshe?
but can you
Yeah,
address
but
that?
Moses did.
How
Moses
can you
died though.
communicate with somebody
Right.
who didn't die?
So that's what I'm saying, Divine. So let's just take Elijah out. Right. Moshe still up there.
Correct. All right. So the definition of necromancy has to do with a magic ritual involved. Did we witness that in the book of Matthew and Luke at Mount Transfiguration? What was that ritual? Can you walk us through step by step what that was?
Yeah, we can't directly see that there was a ritual performed, but what we can see in the text that he's on a mountain speaking with dead men, or one dead man at least.
What verse is this?
Talking about the transfigured verse when he
Yeah,
Correct.
transfigured,
Mount
right?
Mount
Yeah.
Transfiguration is found in Matthew
Yeah.
and it's found also in Luke. I'll get you the verse right now. I can read it to you.
Yeah,
But
Moses
again,
was dead
definition
though.
wise, correct. Moses did die. However, there's questions about his body, right? But that's another conversation altogether, another subject matter. But nonetheless, in order for you to do necromancy, you have to do a ritual. You have to also go into a trance, and there's a whole process involved. We didn't see any of that here. If this is by way or by virtue of the patron deity of these individuals, who's the one that made this happen, because when they wanted to build booths to these entities, they were shunned from doing so. So the overseer of what took place was the patron deity of these individuals. It is not necromancy by definition, because necromancy is a communication of the dead outside of the confines of what you're given within your culture or what Israel had in their culture. So this is not an example of necromancy by definition. Now, if you want to extend the gamut of that definition, that's a different story. But according to the definition, this is not
Which
necromancy.
definition are you using, Divine?
Which definition?
Yeah, I looked up the
Which?
English Oxford definition. That's the one that I use. Which one are you using?
No. You have to go into a lexicon, brother. Can't go into an English dictionary to get your answer for that. And then you have to look to see the same word or its cognates in sister cultures to get a full understanding of what necromancy is, how that practice is performed.
Right. So I,
Right.
I get the
So
on it's this definition, but I'm saying necromancy wasn't unique or even a a trait necessarily of the Hebrew culture, but it is a trait throughout indigenous culture across the world. So they had necromancy regardless, right? So clearly the Hebrews can't define necromancy for an entire globe. What I'm saying
no,
is
brother, but wait, hold on. But you're so we have to define it according to its usage in the primary text in question here.
okay.
You're making reference to the book of Matthew and Luke. There's a definition for necromancy in that text. And that goes back to the underlying original languages. We're dealing with one culture. Now, if you're saying, oh, this involves every culture in regards to this definition of necromancy, this is what you're doing now. You're stretching the connotation outside the primary text. That's a different conversation. Is
We
that what you're doing? If so, then we can go that direction. We can pull some sister cultures or cultures far from Israel and look to see, using their terminology, what necromancy is and what it involved. Because then I'm going to have to bring that back to this question in Matthew and Luke and say, is this what they did here? Do we see this ritual being performed? And you would have to say no.
Right. It's just that this is my first time hearing someone say a ritual has to be performed from necromancy. And again, if I understand you correctly, the reason
Yeah,
why
I never heard that neither. That's the first
Okay,
time I
so
heard
so
that
let me
shit.
let me explain. Right, this is it's very simple.
if I could finish,
Okay, go ahead,
if I
King.
could
Go
finish,
ahead.
Because I
the
mean,
reason why I said,
go
oh,
ahead,
go
my
ahead, man.
set. No, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Ramal. Because I want to ask a question after that.
Yeah,
Go
I
ahead.
just
You
said
can do
when,
that.
and again, Divine. The only reason I said anything is because when you said ritual specifically, I was like, well, what about all the testimonies of people who spoke to the dead, aka their ancestors, in a dream? No ritual involved at
God
all.
damn,
So
that's what
when
I
you,
was gonna ask. I was gonna ask the same question. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah, so when you said that, I said, okay, so now which definition are you using? And then that's what you just explained, what you explained.
All right, so let's dive into that, right? It was never considered necromancy when the individual is unconscious and in the dream. That's not considered Matter of fact, what culture are you referring to? Give me a text so we can refer to it.
Well, shit, in my practice, Matter Volume 1, necromancy, we don't call it necromancy, but yeah, being able to speak to my ancestors by any means.
Ron, hold on. The author of Mention Volume 1,
Right.
right, never claims that having gone to sleep and speaking to an ancestor is necromancy. Where is that at in that book? I have it right here. Show
So
me. What
let's
page
go.
on it?
Hold on.
Mm-hmm.
Find it for you.
Sure.
And like I said, I don't know if you just heard me. I just said he doesn't call it necromancy. Now,
Yeah. So brother, that's what I'm
now,
saying. So what is the
English,
practice called then?
English Oxford Dictionary calls what I just said necromancy. English Oxford Dictionary, if I look up the definition of necromancy, which says to um, speak the supposed practice of communicating with the dead, especially in order to predict the future, English Oxford Dictionary calls my communication with ancestors necromancy. That's the definition I'm using, English Oxford. You see what I'm saying? So anything
Yeah, I hear
out,
you.
yeah, anything outside of English Oxford, okay, now I'm getting some clarification from you.
We can go into ancient Egypt, right? There's tons of text written in the Middle Kingdom about communicating with the dead. It's always a process, for the most part, done by the priesthood, right? And we see good examples of that of the Amun-Ra priesthood, right? Communicating with the dead. Same thing with the dream parchment. The dream parchment was only relegated to the Amun-Ra priests for them to, number one, interpret, number one, identify, and number one, categorize what dreams are authentic and which ones are not. So the point that I'm trying to make to you is, if you're saying that necromancy, mind you, you're using an English word, right, that has wide ranging applications. If you're talking about indigenous cultures, you have to pick one. Pick an indigenous culture. Let's get a secondary or primary source, right? Because sometimes if it's oral, you need a secondary source. You don't have a primary source for oral, and let us examine it, because what I'm going to show you here, what we're looking at in the Bible, is not the same thing. They're two different practices. For example, in Deuteronomy chapter 18 in the Bible, there's an outlawing of necromancy. There's an outlawing of it. But what is it? What does that look like? Well, according to Deuteronomy chapter 18, it is the customs of the peoples in the land, which means I got to go to Canaanite culture and look to see what this is. I got to go to Jezebite culture. I got to go to Ammonite culture. I got to go to Moabite culture, Ugaritic, because in Ugarit, we have a wide range of texts there. We have to go and look at that culture to define what necromancy is. And then once we understand what that practice is, now let's go back to Matthew and Luke and apply it and see if this is what is taking place at Mount Transfiguration. And that's not what's happening there. That's simply what I'm trying to say. Now, if you're going to take a definition that is wide ranging and use one culture that's alien to the text, and say, no, see, this is what it is, simply because they're communicating with people who died, and then you conceded that only one person died, that's fine, right? And I say to you, there's a ritual involved in doing necromancy. Communicating with the dead is called different things in different cultures. It could be done in dreams, like you said, right? It could be done while you're awake, under a trance, etc. They have their own terms for that. It is not called necromancy. The Israelites would see what a Canaanite would do. It's a whole practice. Number one, they'd have to get some herbs involved to put them in a trance. That's typically what the priest would do. The
Yeah, I
common
did
man
that.
wouldn't be able to do this. An example of that from the Bible is when Saul goes to the witch of Endor and asks her to consult with somebody who died. That's the process. You cannot go outside of a priest or priestess. That's there in the text, right? For a point of reference. And then she has to go through a process. Now,
So
if you
one
go
thing you
to
have to be,
Endor,
you saying one part, you have to be anointed to actually be a priest or priestess and all these
no, when I
practices.
yeah. So what I'm
Because the
saying
only
is,
way you could do necromancy, and I agree with you on that one, you have to be a priest or a priestess. I agree. But they have to be anointed to be a priest and a priestess to exercise this practice. That's what you're saying?
yeah, when you say anointed, you just mean somebody who's conferred the role of a priest or
Well,
priestess.
not really
I mean,
anointed,
there's
but
no
you know
smearing
that
of
word, like
oil on priest.
no,
Hmm.
not anointed. Maybe that's the wrong word, divine. Not anointed. What's the word I'm looking for? When they damn, what's the word? Come on, y'all know. Initiated.
And then, okay,
Ah, yes, there you go. Yes, that's correct, my
and
brother.
Okay,
Yep,
initiated. All
yep.
right, gotcha.
okay.
Yeah,
So
so let me,
go
okay,
ahead.
go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead, my brother. Go ahead.
No, no, that
You gonna say something,
we're now
Ramon?
using initiated. Now we're really getting into different understandings of what necromancy is. So
Definitely,
that's
definitely.
okay. Yeah, go
I'm
ahead.
a concede to that, Divine, because you shared some life, and I appreciate your scholarship as always, man. Because before that, I'm under the assumption that if one consult with the dead, regardless of how he does it, he still consult with the dead. But now that you brought this new information out, where a ritual must be performed in order to proceed with that, I'm gonna yield to that. I appreciate.
Let me show you what I mean by
Yeah,
that. Right,
I
here's a
agree
great
with that.
example. Hold on, let me show you. All right, and again, I'm not just saying this just to say that I've looked into this extensively because I study pre-Israelite culture, and this is something that I got my degree on. Right, but let me show you an example. Right, anybody here, go to BibleHub.com. Right, go to BibleHub.com, and I want you to type in Deuteronomy chapter 18, verse 11. This is a verse that has three clauses in it, right? And in the first clause, right, of this passage, you're going to see the term that's translated as necromancer. And then when you go in to look into the Hebrew word for it, you're going to see it means bottle. It's a reason why it's a reason why I said there's a ritual involved, because it simply goes back to what one does with the bottle in Canaanite culture in order to invoke the dead and communicate with them. It's a whole process. That's what I'm saying, right? We got Ugaritic text on this as well. I'm gonna pull one of those up in a moment. So anybody, go ahead. So you can see, make sure I'm not lying. I'm not making this up. Go to Deuteronomy chapter 18, 11. Type it in the search field in Bible Hub. And once you pull it up, you're going to see what's called a parallel Bible on the left. Then you'll see context and cross references on the right. But if you go straight to the top, you're going to have two rows, one blue row with abbreviations for translations, NIV, NLT, ESV. The row underneath it, you're going to see parallel, sermons, top, topical,
D,
strong.
D,
Go to interlin.
D,
Go to
you're
interlin.
moving. You're moving too quick, my brother. I really want to follow you because I want
Okay, let me slow
to.
down. Let me slow down. Let me slow. All right. So go to BibleHub.com on your phone, on your computer, tablet, whatever. Right. I'll slow it down. I'm sorry. And once y'all are there, let me know. Whoever's trying to follow, just let me know. I want to make sure I walk you through step by step. And the main reason why I'm using this is
All
a
right, I'm
free tool. I can share some sources at the top, but I want to start at a rudimentary level first, right? So once you're at Bible Hub, my brother, in that search field at the top, that's a magnifying glass to the right, type in Deuteronomy 18:11. And let me know when you're there.
I'm there.
All right, hit the magnifying glass. All right, and when you do that, underneath what you just typed in, right, there's going to be a blue row with abbreviations: NIV, NLT, ESV, BSB. Those are Bible translations, right? Right underneath that is a second row in light gray. It's going to say parallel, sermon, topical, strongs, comment. You're going to go to where it says interlin. And let me know when you click on that.
I'm there, but it took me back to Genesis, so I gotta type in Deuteronomy again.
Yeah, take your time, brother. Take your time. Just let me know when you're ready. I got you.
Okay, I'm there. D.
All right. And once you're there and you scroll down, you'll see where the entire passage is parsed out. Okay. You'll see these diagonal dividers. Like you'll see if you read it in English, or one who conjures spells or consults a medium, there's a divider there. That means we're looking at the first clause, right? where it says, or one who conjures, we chober, one who conjures, haber, which is spells, or haver, or we shoel, right? Or consults, then you have ob, that word ob there. What you want to do is click that Strong's Key Concordance 178 right above that word. And when you click into that, just tell me what the word means. What's the definition of the word? And I'm gonna show you how our modern understanding of you ever been in the hood or anywhere else where there's liquors, it says wine and spirits. It's a
Hmm.
reason why that's there. It comes from ancient Near Eastern practices. It's a process. This is what I'm trying to explain. It's a ritual that you got to go through, right? So you'll see the word there is bottle. Isn't that what it is? And they also have a necromancer. Do you see that?
Now,
Let me know when you get there. Anybody?
so look, I'm
You
under right now.
you
I'm
don't?
under, look. It says
Hmm.
OWB, right?
Correct.
OWB. Englishman concordance. I got Leviticus 20 verse
No, no,
27.
no, no,
I
no,
got,
no, 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 no.
I'm
Wait,
just
wait, 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 wait.
on you what I'm looking at. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
and that's what I'm saying. I'm trying to get you to where I want you to see. So, do you see where it gives you the Strong's Key Concordance 178? It gives you the word, and underneath that, it should say Strong's Concordance, and underneath that, it should say Ob, a bottle made from animal skin, a necromancer. Original word has Aleph, Wav, Beit, with the Cholam over the Wav. Part of speech, now masculine. Transliteration, Ob. Phonetic spelling, Ob. Definition, a
I,
bottle made from animal skin, a necromancer. You see
I
that?
I see. I see. Okay.
Gotcha. So scroll down and you'll see where it says word origin is an unused word, right? Which means that that is the root. You can't deduce any deeper than that, right? You get a definition and you get an NASB, the New American Standard Bible Translation, medium, spirit wine skins. And if you go down further into the Brown Driver Briggs, which is a lexicon in the public domain, so anybody can repost it for free, you can go down on it and you'll see one of the first usages is a skin bottle that you pour wine in. It is believed that spirits come from that because when you drink the wine, that is how you can get into a trance so that you can divine with spirits. Now, I have a great paper on this if y'all want to read it to go into it. But what I'm simply saying is when you're looking at that word necromancy, and somebody just takes the English definition and then looks it up in an Oxford dictionary and say, oh, see, that's what it means. So this is what they must have done there. And I said, wait, culturally speaking, going back to the underlying language, what does that word mean? These people were Jews. This would have been their culture. So they would have understood this. I didn't see no wine bottle being popped. Anybody drinking anything at the, I mean, I didn't see that. Maybe it's there in the text and I missed that portion, but that process was not done. That ritual, it wasn't just drinking the wine. It's a ritual that you do to go under a trance in order for you to communicate with the dead. Do
Gotcha.
y'all see that?
I'll go ahead.
No, you good. You go
Divine,
ahead.
after you're done speaking on this necromancy, um, if you have a moment, I would like to discuss the demon, the Kundalini, that's at the bottom of my back. I need some further information on that because I'm really freaked out.
Please,
Okay,
please don't be.
no problem.
So, Divine, what you're saying is, well, what we just received is a proper understanding of the definition of necromancy in relation to the Jewish culture. Now, that's fine. What's also now at the same time, are you saying that it is not possible to communicate with the dead without doing a ritual?
That's not what I'm not saying that. No,
I,
but
right, cool. You're not saying
correct,
great, great. You're
correct.
not saying okay, cool. Now, so what do you define as communicating with the dead without doing a ritual?
Depends on the culture. What culture we talking about? Kemetic culture,
Uh,
Egyptian culture, or the
if
Bible? Because that is the primary text we've been dealing with.
if I said I spoke to my paternal grandma yesterday in a dream, what would you consider that to be?
Um, a dream.
A dream. Okay,
She
so
appeared. Yeah, because so for example, there was a thin veil between the dead and the living in dreams, right? So
hmm
when you study the dream parchment, you'll see that that's the case. So that's a primary source anybody could look up in ancient Egypt, right, or Kemet, right, or Misraim, right. And what happened is believed that when you die, you're released from the body and you're in that realm with the dead. So you're able to communicate with them. They're able to communicate to you. But when you're alive, You have to go under a trance. It's a whole process. We could pick up
Divine,
several indigenous
practice.
cultures.
I
Hold on,
practice.
brother.
Yeah,
I
I'm saying.
got you. Hold on. I'm not even going to reveal what I've done firsthand with that type of stuff. But what I'm simply saying is, it's an entire process. I had a Baba show me how to perform that, how it's done. And almost all the time, you have to be in a trance. There's a whole process. Now, if you're talking about West African culture, right? It's a whole process. Drums is involved, right? You need some form of inebriation. You have to be inebriated in order for this process to work. So they either use forms of drugs or they use forms of what we're looking at here, spirits from wine, etc., to come under a trance. Because you cannot be induced the same way consciously that you are unconsciously. It's two different things. So what I'm simply saying is it's a ritualistic process. Now, in a dream, you don't have to do that because you're sleeping. You're freed from the body, and it's believed that thin veil you can cross over and commune with the dead. But while you're awake, because remember, these people were awake when this was happening in the book of Matthew and Luke. They were not sleeping. They were awake, which means they would have to have gone through a whole process if they wanted to communicate with the dead. And that's not what we see there. So this is something totally separate, right? Because one of the things they would have said, and we see a lot of pushback from the disciples of Jesus whenever something occurred that seemed against their culture. Like when he was talking about eating my flesh and drinking my blood, they was looking crazy at him. Like, oh, what the fuck is that? So anything that they would have identified that would have been foreign to their culture or taboo, we would get something in a narrative speaking about it. But guess what? When they saw this, they wanted to create booths. So let me explain to you what that means. So angels appear to these people consistently. Angels, divine messengers, while the person was awake. We have that actually in the primary text in the book of Matthew and the book of Luke. Matthew chapter 1, Luke chapter 2. While somebody's awake, an angel appears to them. So what typically happens is whenever they have an encounter with some kind of ethereal being, they would build a booth, they would build a small tabernacle or put up a stone. And they would do this because that would be indicative of their encounter with this entity, this ethereal entity. We also see that with Jacob wrestling with the angel. Then he puts a headstone in there and he calls it a name. It's a whole process. So when they saw these entities there, we don't know if they knew who that was, right? We're looking at it in hindsight. The person is writing this back in hindsight. They understood that if he's speaking to this person, hey, let's make these booths. Let's put up these standards on these tabernacles in reverence of this encounter. They wanted to do that because that was part of their culture, but they were shunned from doing that because that wasn't the purpose of them witnessing this, right? That's what's going on in that context. Now, if you want a good book, there's an article by Robert K. Rittner called Necromancy in Ancient Egypt. And it's in a larger volume called Ancient Magic and Divination in the Ancient World, Volume 2. This was published January 1st, 2002. The ebook ISBN number is 978-900-449-7368. Publisher's Brill. And you can go and read into it, where an expert in this field of necromancy in ancient Egypt has written extensively on how this is performed in ancient Egypt. And dreams is something separate.
Okay, great.
Because again, there's no
Hold,
body. You're not
I,
awake. You're not conscious.
Jamal,
So,
hold on, brother. I was building with. I just wanted to ask him this question too as well, right? Because we still have to deal with the fact that though JC didn't perform a ritual here, he's still consulting with the dead, right? So what would you call that, Divine? He's literally talking with dead
That's what
people.
I'm trying to figure out as well.
yeah, prophets always encountered entities, whether they were dead, alive, or whatever the case may be. This is not something that's strange to the author of the book, right? They're not saying anything that is out of place taking place here, which leads us to believe that this was something that would happen with prophets during that time. So this would not have been considered necromancy because, again, you have to have a process involved. And whenever the term necromancy is used, it's typically about foreign practices that cultures outside of Israel were performing that Israel was not supposed to engage in.
Right,
That's not what's taking place here.
right,
That's not what's taking
right.
place here, right?
Go ahead.
So you have this prophet Messiah figure in the eyes of his disciples who took them to a mountain. And just so y'all know, when you study mountaintop theology, this was very common for people to meet the dead or to meet ethereal beings on the mountain. This is why Moses kept being told to come all the way up to the mountain. And when he came down, his face was glowing because this was a common theology at that time. The mountaintop is where the gods resided.
Or high place.
That was my bad, y'all. Divine, I'm so sorry. I was trying to look at your profile. I'm so sorry.
I'm about to say, what happened to the brother? Brother got kicked out, man.
Yeah, no, that was my bad. Sorry.
Oh yeah, it's all good. It's all good. I know sometimes I got to get a spanking from time to time because I be
So
overloading
the
y'all with information.
if you can,
But what I'm saying is,
mhm.
so go ahead. I'm sorry, brother.
No. I wanted you to repeat what you were saying so I don't miss it.
Yeah, I got you. So what I was saying was, when you study mountaintop theology, you would know that in the ancient Near East, it is believed that deities and the dead can appear at the top of the mountains. And the reason for that is because typically the top of the mountains will pierce through the lower cumulus layer of the atmosphere, which means it goes through the clouds. So it's believed that the deities and the dead resided in that realm above the clouds. So when you have an individual taking you to a mountaintop, right? Typically, what they encounter on that mountaintop is something supernatural, something ethereal, right?
Oh,
So in the mind of the author who's writing this, is nothing strange that this is happening. They're not saying or having the disciples misinterpret that this is a form of necromancy taking place. That never happens. Why? These were astute Jews who kept the law. Why did they not look at this strange, or like when he say, "Eat my flesh and drink my blood"? Yeah, they looked at him weird. The narrative actually tells you that they looked at him like, "What? What are you talking about?" But that's not their reaction to this
right.
event.
So
And like I said, the reason why is because at the high top of a mountain, this is where you have high places or altars that are built, shrines are built there, tabernacles are temporarily erected there, and when you have your what you call it, your oh man, just it just slipped my mind. It'll come back to me. But anyway, when you build your edifices, the purpose is so that it's so high that it emulates a mountaintop. The higher you get, the more you can see and engage with. So that's why I'm saying this is not considered
oh,
necromancy by
right.
definition, according to the
Right. I
culture.
mean,
Mhm.
again, right. I conceded to the scholarship that you brought out, right? That it must be a practice by a culture or someone who's pretty much performing a ritual, right? I conceded to that idea. However, in Deuteronomy 18, it goes on giving commas, right? It said one who consult with the dead. Again, this brother is actually consulting, speaking with dead people on a mountaintop. And you said something earlier too as well. What it was called when one do go to the mountaintop? What is that called?
I was yeah, I was saying mountaintop theology. That's what you're
Mount.
talking about.
Okay. Do we have any evidence that the Hebrews practiced or had any foreknowledge of what is considered mountaintop theology?
Yes, Moses going up to the top of the mountain
Oh,
in Sinai to speak to the
oh,
deity
okay, okay. He was called up to the.
and consult with the
Oh,
deity. That's the word that they use to inquire of.
okay. Here's the thing, Divine. He was
Hmm.
called up to the mountaintop by the Most High.
Correct.
That doesn't necessarily substantiate the fact that the Hebrews, as a culture, a collective of people, had understanding of this. That's why I'm asking: is there anywhere we can find culturally, as a whole, people understanding this type of theology, mountaintop theology?
Well, yes, because when you look at the prophet speaking about Yotewave and making his home on Mount Zion, so the prophet spoke to the common people. So they didn't just speak to the nobility, the king, right, or the priests. They also spoke to the common people, and they would speak on behalf of the deity, and the deity will talk about his home being on Mount Zion, like on Mount Zion, right? So
The,
that's a preposition, means on top of something, right? On
divine,
Mount Zion. So the
divine,
people would know that the deity dwelt on top of the mountain. God.
divine. You are a man that brings out a lot of scholarship, brother, and which I respect you for. I'm asking for the proof and the pudding, the meat and
So you want
potatoes. You,
scriptures? That's what you're asking for?
I want. I want scripture of articles, some books, some references that insinuate that the Hebrews understood this mountaintop theology.
Divine, what about the
Uh,
scriptures that when we were commanded to go into these other lands and tear down their high places? Would that work?
Divine
I
don't
mean,
need.
that's even in Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy tells you that. That's before they even went into the land. It's told to take down the Asheroth, that are there, and the high places unto Baal. And this is before they went into the land.
I'll
Yeah,
So
agree.
there
pull
would have
that.
been an understanding of that, right?
Yeah, pull that.
Yeah,
All right, let
listen,
me go get
listen.
it.
Shiva, Divine does not need your help. I asked him for specific information that does not help him. I said I want some antiquity about the Hebrews understanding this mountaintop theology.
Okay,
That's what I
so
gave
let's
you.
let me explain what that means, right? Theology, as you know, theos and logi from logia, it means the speech or the study of, right? So the study of theos, which is the ethereal realm with deities or whatever, mountaintop. So that means anything associated with the theos, the deities, and the mountaintop is what we're talking about here. So the question is, would the common person understand that? Well, Deuteronomy chapter 6 says that we are to speak and live the words that are in this book as we lay down, as we rise up, which means the common folk would have known the book of Moshe. Is that correct? Because if so, I'm going to stick right there and I'm going to show you just in that book. Does that suffice?
No, it doesn't, D. It really
Okay.
does. I need something that specifically outline what you just said.
That the deities resided on the mountaintop.
No, I need information, article, book, reference, something that showed that the Hebrews as a collective understood something called mountaintop theology. That's what I want.
Brother, it's not going to be called that in the Hebrew. There's no word for that. That's a nomenclature that we're using
Oh,
contemporary today to explain a phenomenon in the
oh,
past. Do you
I,
understand?
I,
And I'm trying to explain what that phenomenon is.
okay, okay. Because
It's my
because you,
first time hearing
yeah,
about
I
it as
mean
well.
you brought it
I've never.
up, so I'm assuming that this was a familiar ideology, or
Yeah, that's what I thought too.
you know what I'm saying, that can kind of, we can agree, like Torah, for example. We can find history on the word Torah, and them it just means law, right? A practice, a certain cultural practice. So when you say things like that, mountaintop theology, I'm assuming that this altogether is a practice that they're familiar with by the name of it. So explaining it in depth like that, kind of breaking it up, it doesn't really do anything for me.
I may have an example if y'all will allow me to read 2 paragraphs, and this is from the Torah. It's not directly from the Torah, but it relates to the Torah. And whether it's right or wrong, maybe Divine can say, no, that doesn't apply, or yes, it does. Hold on just a second.
And D, like again, I'm not here to challenge you. I'm here to learn, right? But at the same time, um, I just don't want to take it without seeing it. I'm that type of guy. Like, show me, open it up, let me see it. Because you did earlier, right? And I said I conceded to it. Like, I respect that. But just to bring it out and throw it out there without showing me, I can't accept it.
While Stephanie is getting that, when Divine said mountaintop, I understood it to mean worship in the high places. I automatically translated that in my mind because I knew they went up to do these evils and they would do their sacrifices. I knew that's what that was. Whether he called it a mountaintop or a pinnacle or penthouse or, whatever, I understood what he
Okay.
said
Okay.
is up.
Now, Shiva, that's fine for you, but things must be substantiated. It must be proven. You can't just accept it because someone says it. It has to be shown to you in a specific like manner in order for you to download and receive it.
I will give you all the scriptures that have to do with high place worship.
Can I say something real quick?
Yeah, go
Go
ahead. I'm
ahead,
just
just
collating
on.
everything over
I'm going
here.
to stand down and let
Oh,
them have it.
oh
Go
no,
ahead,
no, no,
just on.
Mama Steph. I still want you to read that. I just want to say something really fast. Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, you're loud and
We
clear.
can go ahead.
Okay. Just really quick. Now saying my signal acting up. Okay, provoking what I think what Devon is trying to get you to see. He's only using the term mountaintop theology to explain what that experience was of whether you were Israelites, whether you were Greeks, whether you were anyone who lived in a region where it was mountainous. There were particular mountains all over the world that were considered to be sacred mountains. These mountains were
Correct.
thresholds where people would go from different cultures to commune with the divinity. So what the Israelites got their mountain where they built their temple from the Jebusites. The Jebusites were people who, before the Israelites built the temple there, the Jebusites were practicing a different religion on that mountain for this very reason.
Correct.
So when the Jebusites finally sold that mountain, can you hear me still? It said red
No,
bar.
you good. You
No,
good.
no,
Keep
no.
going, brother.
Good.
So,
Yeah.
so when the Jebusites finally sold that mountain or the threshing floor to David, so that David could build the temple, it was an exchange, a cultural exchange for this same reason. So David received that particular space in Israel to build the temple because of mountaintop theology and these mountains that were considered to be sacred in these various places. You understand that?
Okay, good, beautiful. So listen, even if we were to zone in on that point, right? We're specifically talking about the Most High. We're not talking about other dead men or deities at this point. So now we have a discrepancy here. You see what I'm saying? The discrepancy here, we don't see JC going up to the mountaintop and consulting with the Father. He's specifically talking to dead men. See, that's a problem.
Well, we don't know. Wait. We don't know that he's not consulting
Uh,
with the Father because the
First thing,
Father
Elijah didn't
speaks.
die.
Well, yeah. Well,
It's
yeah. I mentioned that too,
already.
Trilla. The Father speaks. He says, "Hear my son." We don't know. We can't say he didn't commune with the Father when the Father spoke while this was going on. So how are we going to say that the Father was not involved in this process? I
Hey,
disagree
hey,
with that.
that's
That
that.
was his
Hold on,
approval.
hold on.
Facts. Facts.
He and I breaking bread. The divine and I are breaking bread. So that's good, right? The Father did speak. That was after the fact that he was being seen consulting with dead men. And again, we visit the whole Elijah thing. Elijah wasn't dead. That Moshe's still up there.
Okay, yeah, we mentioned that Moshe was up there and he was communicating with Moshe about something very specific,
That
and it had to do with what's going to happen to him in
right?
Jerusalem.
Okay, divine. He still was consulting with the dead. Deuteronomy 18 outlined. Then again,
Brother,
it's a whole.
what I'm saying is, yes, he's
Go
consulting
ahead.
with whatever form Moshe was in. I'm not disagreeing with you on that.
Okay,
What I'm saying is, it's not necromancy because necromancy is a specific
right.
practice. That's all I'm
Agree.
saying.
I agree. I agree to that. Remember, I said I concede to what you brought out. That's fine. I'm not calling it necro. I'm calling it simply one who is consulting with the dead. Because Deuteronomy 18 outlines one who consult with the dead, and it also outlines necromancy. It separates them, but he's still consulting with the dead.
All right, so let's go back to Deuteronomy 18 real quick, right? So are you talking about verse 11 or are you talking about another verse in Deuteronomy
Verse
18?
11.
Okay, so in verse 11, what is that first word there? Look that first word up there.
Hold on, I got to pull.
Sure, take your time. And I'm going to show you it's not just consulting, right? It's a
That brother
process,
from
as
New
y'all been
Orleans,
saying.
man, you just can't tell him anything. Let him know,
So
bro.
that first word there, 2266, and your Strong's key concordance, that first word there, kabar, it means to tie a magic knot or spell or charm. You know, it's a whole process to do that. You can't. So what I'm saying is, you can't just sit somewhere and say, "I'm gonna call my dead ancestor." That doesn't work. You can't just
I'm
do that. The summoning
I'm
process.
But this is where I'm confused, brother. I'm so confused, Divine. Like, are you speaking from experience? Are you speaking from experience?
He's speaking from fact. He's speaking from the divine.
So
No.
let me let me let
One
me do
second.
this. Let me do this. Right. You ask me if I'm
'Cause
speaking for experience, meaning have I ever witnessed one of these rituals taking place? Yes, I
no,
have
you
several
yourself.
times.
No, you
No,
yourself. Not
I've never.
witness.
No. Hold on. I personally have never done it myself. There's
Okay,
no need because there's
okay.
no need for me to do that. Right.
So I just
However,
want
I
to
have
compare.
witnessed it.
All right, and I've witnessed people speak to their dead ancestors without this ritualistic practice that you're talking about, as if it was their what I would consider psychic ability to do so. So, I just want to make sure that we're involving all aspects of
Okay. Are
reality
you
and
talking
not
about? Are
just
you talking
like
about a medium? Is that what you're talking about? A
if I mean
clairvoyant? Is that what you're talking about?
if
The person that you're referencing is a medium or clairvoyant?
I mean they can call themselves that, but sure,
No, no, no,
people.
no, brother. Listen, the only people who was adepts that could do that were either a medium or a clairvoyant.
And are you
These
speaking
individuals
from
were special.
experience?
Yeah, they were
Are you
special
speaking from
indicators.
experience, or are
Or
you
a
just theorizing?
witch.
Okay.
That the
So what
only
I'm
How can we say that if he's speaking of
We're
dreams though?
speaking from
no, but we're
that's
not
the
He
talking
said
about
he
that's
was a
dreams no more
witch.
at this point. We're talking about somebody who can
no, we're
consciously
talking
do
about
this.
communicating with the dead. By we were
He
talking
talking
about
about communicating with the dead. Period. Do
period.
dreams, daydreams, or
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
It sounds like a mesh and amalgamation of different cultural
And that's why I
understandings
was trying to
happening
single
right
it out,
now.
JV, LV, so he
I
can
beat that.
understand.
I beat that. So that's why I moderated you, or I gave you a mod badge, because I like what you're doing here. It we have to zone in and specify what culture we are dealing with when it comes to the understanding of these passages. We're using words like seance or clairvoyant. These things mean something and come from particular practices. So let's start zoning in and narrowing what we're talking about, because right now
Nah,
we're
he's
getting
talking
all over the
about he's just
place.
talking about a dream. Like we don't have to go into culturalistic beliefs practices
The
when he's talking
conversation
about
been left the
someone.
dream.
Wait, listen. When if I have a dream about my dad right here today, that doesn't mean that I practice a certain kind of cultural practice
No,
to be
no,
able to talk.
but
He's talking about
Ramal brought
speaking
up
with the
Egypt.
dead.
Okay,
Period.
Ramal
Right.
brought up
Jesus was
Egypt.
dreaming
Wait one
with
second.
Moses and
Ramal
Elijah.
brought up dreaming. Divine Prospect
No, no, no.
says, I'm
Listen.
familiar with that. I got you. I'm familiar with those cultural understandings there. There's something called a veil. And they believe in their culture that when they are dreaming, they are able to go on the other side of that veil because they have left consciousness. He's saying it is something different
No,
entirely
how can
to
it be
be
culture if
awake.
you don't know, if you don't have a culture to do it? That's the whole
Well,
point. Like,
that's the point.
if
Listen, we were speaking on the Egyptian culture. That's what I'm saying
no,
now.
no, no,
We're like, it's
listen,
like we're
listen,
leading
listen.
somewhere else.
No, we wasn't,
I did
LB.
not
Not
bring
from
up
the
Egypt.
beginning. We wasn't.
I did not
Nah,
bring up Egypt.
maybe he just brought that up now. But from the beginning, we was
I,
not
I,
speaking of no Egyptian cultures. We
But
wasn't.
I've been. Well, Divine Prospect is just coming in. Even this last half an hour is new in comparison to the conversation we've been having all day.
No, no,
So
no.
I'm sorry
Ramal
if Ramon
never brought
didn't.
up an Egyptian culture. Listen, bro.
Yeah.
Divine
Oh my
asking for
goodness. Yes, you
no,
did.
no. Listen, divine at the beginning. Divine asked him for a culture, but Ramon said, no, I'm talking about like you speaking of like dreaming, one who have like the ability to talk to the dead while dreaming. Now, Divine asked him what kind of culturistic practice you talking about, awake or what? Like, I'm talking about dreaming. You don't have to practice any kind of culture, any because I don't, and I have dreams about my pops all the time. He's dead. So
He
why
had
do I
been
have to
moved from
practice?
that premise, Manny. He had
No, no,
moved.
but
Maybe your phone was
I
out.
know.
Respectfully.
I didn't get the answer. That's what I'm telling you. I didn't get the answer from
So
that.
so
Now,
so
what
Manny,
culture
what is
do
the
I have to
question on the
practice?
table? What's the question on the
All right,
table? So I'm
my
clear.
my question is, I don't practice any kind of culture, right? But I have dreams of the dead, or I daydream. I be wide awoke,
So that means,
and
Manny,
but
that you are clairvoyant and a medium. That's what he was also saying. So that's the
But
confusion.
clairvoyance does not mean you're not communicating with the dead. It can include communicating with the dead. When you say, "Oh, this is clairvoyance and this is necromancy," both can. What we're seeing here is both can communicate with the dead. The point is that I think what's his name, provoking was trying to highlight is simply communication with the dead. Are you talking to them or are you not? The how you did it, how you went about did it, whether it was necromancy or whether it was dreaming, I don't think that's the point. I think the point is why were you communicating with the dead? Because it is, I believe it is taught in the Bible that you're not supposed to communicate with the dead.
No. So that's
Okay,
what I'm saying. So I
okay,
understand
cool.
that question. So let me address that, Ramon. So generally speaking, now it's stretched from a particular passage to generally speaking, which is
right. That's
very
why I'm generally
difficult
speaking.
because wait, hold on. So what I'm saying, which is very difficult because that could be from the time when we first have a recording, something in writing about somebody communicating with the dead, or in archaeology, we actually have cultic items around burial sites, right? So we have excavations from the Stone Age period of people already doing this practice, but we don't have nothing written about it. And then eventually we get petroglyphs, etc. So if you want to go from there all the way to 2022, December 17th, brother, we're going to be here all day looking at all these examples of what it is. I cannot limit somebody's experience by what I read in a text. Everybody's experience is different. But if we're talking about a subject matter, I have to be able to draw from something in order to compare it to something that you're encountering. For example, if you go to a psychiatrist, they have a whole book of psychology that they refer to in order for them to diagnose you or explain what you're experiencing. They have a point of reference. I have to have a point of reference and show you within this culture if a person, in the case of Yeshua, right, communicated with Moses on a mountaintop, and I'm trying to explain to you in the ancient Near East what that is and why they did not see that as something that was something that was taboo, something that was prohibited, etc., is because these events happened all the time. They are not initiating the process. You see, I don't know how that process started in Mount Transfiguration. We just get the narrative that they just happened to witness it. I don't know who initiated that. Typically,
Right.
if it happens to you as opposed to you initiating, those are two different things as well. So, like I said, if we're narrowing it on the text and you're saying, well, they wasn't supposed to do that, and I go to the definition and I explain to you what necromancy actually was, and we don't see that practice happening here, then we have to defer from that. And if you want to defer back to the generalization of communicating with the dead, then yeah, he did. I can't say no, he didn't. We see it in the text. But if we want to get
Can I speak
more
to this when you're
specific to
done?
figure out what's going on,
Can
this
we
is exactly
please
what I'm trying to
analyze
convey.
death
Wait, let him
usually?
You
finish,
gotta
bro.
wait
Hold
one
on.
second. You
Stop
gotta
cutting
wait
man
one
off.
second, bro.
God damn. I'm trying to understand what he's saying, and y'all
He
cutting
was
him
landing
off.
his plane. Go ahead, please.
No. Wait one second. You have to allow an
I'd like to say
individual to
something
land their
about this
plane,
whenever you
please.
finish.
Yeah, I got you, Trilla. Let me reset the room because it's getting hot. But we want to move in order and decency, for real, for real. Let's not get carried away here. Everybody, welcome to the Grand Rising Room. We appreciate you being here. If you are not a member already, please go to the top left of your screen. Click the greenhouse and become a member. You'll find yourself at the forefront of many interesting conversations. Also, follow the moderators. These individuals are always active, especially when it comes to, to the biblical matters, the debates. I'm pretty sure all of you guys are familiar with it. We appreciate the room for being open and even the guests that are coming through. And when you're here, we want to operate in, decency and order so that the people in the audience can actually learn something. Appreciate everybody for being here. Trilla, I want you to go ahead and take the mic, man.
All right, so I think it's an Old Testament passage that say you're not supposed to contact mediums or spirits. You know what I'm saying? If you want to do that, you need to come to God. So I'm looking at the Mount of Transfiguration. I'm looking at it in Luke chapter 9. Uh, the first thing it says that Jesus was praying. I think it's in verse 28. And this word pray is talking about praying to God the Father. It's the Greek word G4336, proseuchomai. And if we go into the Theos Greek lexicon and look at it in Luke 9:28, it's saying to offer prayers to God. It's a bunch of passages, and this passage is what I'm talking about. So he's praying to God the Father. All right. So we keep going down, and it says that in verse 30, and behold, two men talked with him, who were Moses and Elijah, who appeared in the glory, who appeared in glory and spoke of his decease, which he was about to accomplish at Jerusalem. So let's look at this word glory. It's the Greek word doxa. Uh, so let me find this word. Okay, glory. G1391. Let's see what it means in Luke chapter 9. Luke chapter 9. Okay. And it's talking about they appeared in the majesty. They appeared in the majesty that which belongs to God, the kingly majesty which belongs to him as the supreme ruler. Uh so Moses and Elijah appeared in the glory of God the Father. Jesus Christ was praying to God the Father. Um if we go back and look at what it means to channel a medium or a spirit in the Old Testament in the context of what it's talking about, is you have to channel them. You know what I'm saying? And you're not going to God to do it. Like we could see what Saul did when he went to the witch of Endor. He didn't go to God because God wasn't communicating with him. So you have in the Mount of Transfiguration. I think it's in Matthew 17. It's in Luke chapter 9. Jesus is praying to the Father. He prays to the Father. His face and his body is illuminated. Then you see Moses and Elijah appear in the glory of God the Father. Then you see the presence of God appear in the cloud and say, "This is my son." So Jesus is the catalyst, and God the Father is making these things happen. In the context of trying to say like this some type of necromancy, like it's cap as hell, just according to the
Facts.
to the context
Facts.
of the
Matter of fact,
Bible
Trilla,
and these
can
Greek
I'm
words.
sorry. Can
Go
you
ahead,
read
brother.
Isaiah chapter? Can you read Isaiah chapter 8, verse 19, please? If you don't mind, that goes along with what you're saying.
Isaiah 8 and 19. Yes,
And
sir.
Trilla, while you're getting it, he's also showing his power over the dead and the living. He's showing that he's all powerful. It's a lot that's going on that Mount of Transfiguration, but most of it is power.
You can't deny
Right.
the fact that Moses was dead. I hear what y'all saying, but you can't deny the
Yes,
fact
Moses
that
is
Moses
dead.
was dead.
Yes,
That's what
man, he's
that's the
dead.
point.
Yeah, he was
Right.
But you
No
dead.
can't call it
problem. He's dead.
necromancy either if you the creator of the world.
No, no, no. I'm not saying it's
No,
necromancy.
but
That's
Calling
not
it
but
what I'm
that.
that's
saying.
what Ramal was saying.
Brother.
Ramal was saying it's a
Yeah, that's what.
form of
Oh
Yeah.
no, I'm
necromancy.
not saying that. No, I'm not talking
Okay.
about Ramal. I'm talking about the other brother.
But that's what I was
So I
trying to
No,
tell
no.
you, Manny. Your phone kept going in and out, and you couldn't get everything that was going down. Your service was bad.
Yeah.
My
Listen,
bad, my
listen.
bad, y'all. My bad.
so well let me read this. Let me read this verse real quick. Isaiah 8 and 19. And when they say to you, seek those who are mediums and wizards, who whisper and mutter, should not a people seek their God? Should they seek the dead on behalf of the living? So as I close, I hear people asking a lot of questions. I hear people hard pressed asking for sources. So you know what you got to do if you about to talk to me. You got to source up and prove your point. Opinion time is over.
Well, I had a source about 20 minutes ago, but nobody wants to hear it because y'all want to
Yeah,
talk
he
Yes, I
never
about
want
got
to
on that.
hear it.
something
I want to hear it.
else.
Go ahead,
Yeah, he
Mother
never got on
Stephanie.
Period.
that.
I want to hear it.
I can just send
Yeah.
it to your phone because nobody seems interested. And it really has something to do with you speaking about the elevation, going up to the mountain, and what that signified. So I went and I found something on Moses when he went up to the mountain and what that signified. I'll have to find it again.
Mama Steph, post that to the
That's a
room, and I
cliffhanger.
want to say something to the room. Yeah, yeah, go grab that because I did hear you try to insert that earlier, and that's why on stage, man, we have to be ultra sensitive to the information when it's coming out. Let's a lot of times we can get high energy, things spill over. Let's just make sure we give individuals the respect to bring this stuff out respectfully. Brother, Divine Prospect, you here?
Yes, my brother, I'm here.
I heard you speaking on this understanding of the mountaintop theology that's predating a lot of these cultures. Uh, I want to ask you: is the pyramids being shaped like triangles, or I mean, or being shaped the way they are? Is this trying to mimic like mountains? Because I'm looking at it right now. I'm like,
No,
wait a minute.
no, they're
Were
not.
they trying to uh, uh, give the illusion to or just give the sight to the inhabitants that they are successful in communing with God in the high place, so they make these pyramids? I'm just trying to see. I
Yeah,
don't
well, it
know.
depends because most pyramids are tombs, right? So this is where the dead are placed. And there are other things that are going on with inside an actual pyramid, right? And this is to honor the Nasut who died or the king who died, right? So this is why we have mortuary glyphs that talk about the life of the king, the things he's done in his life. Even we have copies of what's called the Going Forth by Day, or some people know about the Book of the Dead. That's actually outlined also in these mortuary temples, because all of this is done to show the greatness of the king. So we have the three great pyramids that's made in the Old Kingdom, and then that shifts in the Middle Kingdom elsewhere, right? And then we have the pyramid making stop, and then we just have the Valley of the Kings and Queens, where these are rock cut burials and or mortuary temples that are made on behalf of the king. I don't think that the purpose of that was to emulate a mountain, because it wasn't a place of worship in the deity, right? It was more to signify the greatness of the king who died. and his accomplishments. So mostly all kings who had pyramids, it started even before they came into power, when they was a prince, when they had co-reigned with their father, and then it was their job to make sure a pyramid was made on their behalf to kind of celebrate the greatness of that king or the deeds that he would accomplish in his lifetime and in the afterlife, because you
And
have
that
your you have your books of
Copy
the
that.
dead there
Copy
as well.
that. I have a follow up question. I appreciate that correction.
and that's part of the
These.
explanation,
Hmm?
just to add, that's part of the pyramids, because remember, pyramids are not unique to Egypt. They
Correct.
actually predate Egypt. They are a global technology, if you will, and I have to add that word technology in conjunction with tombs.
Well,
In-
that's what I was actually
intergalactical, even
about to
so.
ask. Yeah, well, just be that's why that's kind of where I was gonna go because Divine was saying that this practice of mountaintop theology is ancient. So I was trying to see how far back does it actually go. So I'll
Yeah,
leave it
so
alone.
let me jump in real quick, LV. So good point,
Divine, when you're
but
ready.
remember, oh yes, Mother said I'm gonna finish up with this and alley oop it to you. I was going to end off with this. Most theology, and I'm using theology loosely, spirituality. A lot of times they're using modern nomenclatures to talk about something anachronistically in the past, right? But just bear with me. So when we use these terms, it is mostly centered around the immediate environment of the individuals who are personifying something and projecting it to be a god or a deity. What do I mean by that? If you live in a desert where it's open plain, your theology is not going to be based on a mountaintop because it's not something you encounter day to day. If you're living and let's say the Congo, right, and you're in a rainforest, your theology is not going to be based on a desert. Everything is based on your immediate environment, right? And some things will come in via trade, via loan words, etc., right? So for the most part, mountaintop theology was really relegated to what we call the Levantine region and Mesopotamian region, right? In Egypt, they had a different theology because they weren't dealing with mountaintops like that, right? So it would all be mostly the theology is based on things in your immediate environment that can be consulted and used in a means to kind of explain the ethereal realm. And with that, I'll pass it over to you, Mother Stephanie.
Thank you. This is from a book. This is my homework, by the way. Jehoiakim's not here, so I hope I make him proud. It's called Anatomy of the Soul, and this is page 21. And I'm just going to read the portion that I think is directly relevant to what Divine was speaking on, talking about this mountaintop theology. It says each part of the body corresponds to a different spiritual concept, a different mitzvah. Each organ and every vein contains its own spiritual power. When harnessed, these powers can elevate man above the material form that houses his soul. Moses is the paradigm for this elevation. He purified his physical body to such an extent that his corporeality was transformed into spirituality. The Torah bears witness to this when it relates that Moses ascended to heaven and remained there 40 days and 40 nights without eating or drinking, and it gives reference to Deuteronomy 9 and 9. Another verse states, quote, "This is the blessing with which Moses, the man of God, blessed the people of Israel." It states Moses is called, quote, "a man of God," because he succeeded in transforming his physical body into a godly temple for his spirit. It is thus written in Exodus 34 and 30. When Moses came down from Mount Sinai with the 2 tablets of the testimony in his hand, he did not realize that the skin of his face had become luminous because of God's having spoken with him. When Aaron and all of the children of Israel saw that the skin of Moses' face shone with the brilliant light, they were afraid to come near him. And I'll end there because this book is really good and y'all really need to buy it for yourself. But Divine, is that a small example of what you were referring to when you're talking about this mountaintop theology?
Yeah, so what I would say is that the former portion of what you read is something that would have to develop much later on through the investigation of metaphysics within the culture. But the latter portion, yes, that's something that would have been concrete and surface and something that people would have been able to experience or encounter that in their mindset would have developed this idea of what we call today mountaintop theology. And that is the deities are residing on the top of the mountains that pierce through the lower layer of the cumulus layer of the clouds in the atmosphere, in which individuals will be called or invoked by the deity to come to the mountain and speak. And the last one I'll make on that, something in pop culture that a lot of us are probably familiar with. If you've seen the film 300, you'll see that Leonidas, before he can go to battle against the Persians, he has to consult with the oracles on Mount Olympus. Like this is what you do because it's believed that the oracles or your nabi, your prophets, or whoever are able to better commune with the deity on high places, hilltops, mountaintops, etc. Right? So when the individual came down, people seen this over time. If you're a common layman, you would know that this is happening over time because this is what would have been shared with you. You would know what the king is, what he would have to do before he went to war. You would know what the oracles would do, what their purpose was, right? And the people would witness this. Moses was doing this for 40 years. The people would have witnessed this for 40 years. He's going to the mountaintop and they're standing at the bottom. And every time he comes down, his face is glowing. He has these 2 tablets of stone with him. He has all the, so they know what that means. Every time this man goes up there to speak to this deity, he comes down with some kind of revelation, instruction, information, or whatever. So they, the common folk, would have understood this. They would have encountered this. They would have witnessed this. And this is why we see that play out in the narrative of Shemoth all the way to we get to the book of Numbers. And also, Mother
No
Stephanie, I
further
sent you,
questions. Thank you.
yeah, I sent you a link of a historian who investigates Kundalini and goes into depth explaining what it is and what it's not. Because we have a lot of modern interpretations of what it is, and because most people don't consult the primary sources and or the Hindi scholars that actually examine this to actually extract what that is, right? We typically have a more modern version of it than what was intended for its original immediate audience.
It's definitely not
Thank
a
you,
demon.
dear son. I appreciate that. Thank you. I'm going to look it up now and do more reading. Appreciate you.
That's correct. We have a medium here too. We have a few mediums, so we can actually get into discerning clearly what the codes are. You know, there's always multiple. There's a dichotomy in things that's happening, or a polarity that's always happening with what we're speaking on. That's why there was a confusion initially,
What you mean
because when we're
medium,
speaking
bro?
on
Wait,
one
what do you
thing,
mean? What do you mean medium? What are you talking about?
a medium is just something in which something passes through.
I know what it is, but I mean, don't worry about it.
Wait, are
You
you
asked
a
me what
medium
you mean by
royal?
medium.
Is
Right,
that's the
I
point
know,
we're
right?
asking? Are you the medium royal?
I said there's many mediums here.
In this
Is what I'm
room,
No,
you
are
saying.
mean,
you
right?
one?
That's what he
That's are
asking.
you one?
Are you right?
Yes, of course I am a medium.
Can you consult my grandmother? I have a question for
Oh
her.
shit, here we
What is
go.
it?
Watch this.
Boy, I
So in
walked in
June
right on time. Boy, I
2012,
came in right on
wait,
time.
June 8th, 2012, right, which is on my birthday about 9 years ago, there was something she said to me that she never gave me the full explanation of. And I would like to know what that is to confirm that that's her and for you to give from her the explanation of what that is to me, if you don't mind. We would like to
Okay.
see the process live. Like if you can demonstrate instead of just speaking about it, I think that will authenticate your role, and I think people would take what you're about to say seriously in regards to consulting with the dead. That's all I'm just saying.
Okay, so here we go. So I'm gonna speak to you specifically first, and then I'll generalize to the collective for everybody who's listening.
Thank you, sir.
Secondly, right? So, so for you specifically, the first thing that you have to remember is that one, you cannot die because you were never born. You know, there is no grandma. It is just you. That's a genetic program projection of your mind, of
Man,
your
cue
space.
sound
You keep
effects.
trying. You are continuously
Wait,
trying
Trilla,
to tell
Trilla, I want to hear
yourself
this.
through right through how you're projecting your consciousness and how your thoughts are being generated and how your emotions are projecting your body. You are continuously putting yourself in situations and circumstances where you're seeking to evolve, you're going through the process of evolution, right? So now there has been masters who have mastered these systems, and they have set down policies and codes to actually trap the genetics of the being so that the evolution process is slowed down and entrapped. So what it is that you have to remember is that there is nothing that exists that is outside of you. It is all you. Your
Okay,
grandma,
I
your
didn't get any
mother,
of
your
that, my
brother,
brother.
your
I just want to
sister,
speak to
That's
my
not
all of them
grandmother.
is
Can I
all
right.
talk
you.
to
It's
her,
all you.
That's
please?
Wait
not
one second.
answering his
Everybody
question.
stand
Your
down.
sister,
Everybody stand down real
let me
quick.
rock.
Wait,
I'm gonna
no,
land my plane.
Royal. Wait one
That
second.
gonna be nah,
Royal.
nah,
Wait one second.
nah, nah. We're not gonna do that weird shit up here today, bro. No,
Mm,
bro. Nah, man. Nah, we're not gonna
Let's
Yeah,
do
was
that,
that
bro.
front row tickets? He
maybe
got
the
them front row
maybe
tickets.
he was confused. Divine, go ahead and restate your question. Just
No problem,
maybe
my
he
brother.
was confused. That's a
Yeah,
possibility.
yeah, definitely, Royal. I just want you to know, I'm not trying to mock you, make fun of you. I'm just saying that since this is the conversation, you said there are real mediums on the stage. You confirmed or affirmed that you're one of them. I had a question or inquiry that has been bothering me for at least 9 years. My grandmother, she's not here no more. And I said to myself, if somebody can give me this information, at least in my eyes, it would authenticate their role as a medium, right, or clairvoyant. I've never gotten the answer since, and I went to about 6 different people I knew who were authentic mediums, and none of them actually knew what she said to me. And then what they would say is they would preface it with some information to kind of like confuse me, and then say something like, "Well, you know the answer." I was like, what? So I
With your
just want to make
grandmother?
sure that we have somebody authentic here, according to the conversation, like communicating with the dead. That's what we're talking about. And if you are an authentic medium, I would just like to answer that. I understand you said that I'm never born, nobody actually dies, it's all me. I got
Divine,
you. I've,
don't
I've
even
heard
worry
that
about it,
before,
bro.
my
I
brother.
kicked them out, bro. Don't even worry about it, bro.
Oh,
I kicked them out of here, bro. We ain't gonna even
oh
go there. We ain't
man.
gonna even
Okay.
play like
No
that, bro.
problem. No problem.
No, bro.
I don't
I don't
even.
play like
I was trying to figure out what was he saying? Like he's saying that we
I,
was never born, we
I,
don't
I
die,
He
don't.
or
That's
something
basically
like
enough
that.
for
saying you
you.
are your
It don't
grandmother.
even matter, bro.
Ah,
You your
Yeah.
That's
grandmother,
some
So
weird
now,
shit
I
Divine.
am
going
my
on there,
grandmother.
bro.
Gotcha.
now, Divine, do you think
Thank
your
you,
grandma?
son. We don't need
Yeah,
no
we don't need
portals opening up in
no
this
kind of
line.
witchcraft, nothing in here, man. I'm not trying to
Just
I
out,
open up
got
just out
that
of
you.
door,
yeah,
bro. No, indeed,
just
no,
out of
bro.
curiosity, Divine, do you think your grandma would remember what she said?
Of course you would. Because I'm gonna tell you,
Oh,
my grandmother is from on my mother's side. She's from Tortola, and she mostly lived her life in St. Thomas, right, in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and it was something that she had learned from her grand aunt, I think it was, and it was something culture that goes back to our ancestors who came from Central Africa, right? It was a phrase that she had said to me, but she customized it, obviously. And she said it to me about an event that was going on with me at that time back in 2012, and I never understood what she meant by that. So yes, this is something that she was taught, and she frequently says, but she modified it for me, and I wanted to know how she was applying it to myself. I never got an answer to that. So yes, she would definitely know that, of course.
So,
That would be in our
so
social memory, but amongst
Ramal,
our community.
and respectfully, Ramal, why would you ask that? Like, because I asked you about that earlier when we were talking about prophecy. How's somebody gonna give you a prophecy about something that ain't happened, and you gonna question if they even remember what they said? How you believe in beings that you can tap into and that'll give you prophecy about future events that they never saw, took place, or partook in, but you would ask, do he think she remembered what she even conveyed or told to him? How does can you make that make sense for me?
okay. So when he asked, I wasn't sure the importance of what he was trying to recite. What it sounds like is he was trying to recite a very ancient oral tradition, right? Which is something that somebody should remember. But he didn't say that.
Correct.
He didn't say that
Yeah, yeah.
initially.
Well, the
So
reason why is because the
I,
person who I
I,
was consulting with would have
what I'm
given me
saying is,
those prerequisites,
if my
Ramal.
what I'm saying is, if a family member passed tomorrow, I would not, I would not anticipate. Let's just say I could communicate with a family member that passed tomorrow. I would not anticipate that they they know an exact line from, let's just say, 20 years ago. Like they're human in their spirit form now. So, but what he just highlighted for us was that it was something that she certainly should know. If he said, "Hey, tell me what my grandma's name was," I would have been like, oh, I mean, that's a pretty. It's not maybe the most difficult one, right? But what you highlighted was, it was something that clearly had very significant meaning to her in her entire life. Her human experience and her recanting that memory, I don't put that in the same compartmentalization or category as trying to talk to a non-human uh,
So,
a non-human conscious being. I don't think that they're the same
so how
entity.
do you? But how, so
It's just not
and
human.
that's what I'm trying to understand. But how do you think you can tap into them and they can tell you about something they never even experienced, yet can tell you about something that they said themselves? That's what I'm trying to understand. How do you? Okay, you don't get they the same. I understand that. But how in the world are you trying to tell me that you can tap into them and they can give you revelation on the future or something? You know what I'm saying? Yet they can't even remember something that they told you within a lifetime. Within a lifetime.
A human being, right, and
That's a
a
good
and
point.
a divine being are not the same beings. They're
I,
not.
I,
Right?
of course,
So
yeah, but
You
what's
said
real quick?
ancestors
What's the
though.
definition of right? Exactly, yeah, and I'm saying in the form of ancestors, I'm saying from your perspective, when you're tapping into them, you look at them as a divine being. And if I'm wrong, let me know. But I thought when we talked about it earlier, and we were talking, and I asked you, I said, can you tap into and talk to the ancestors and get prophecy or things like that? You mentioned you at least insinuated, yeah. But how can they tap into and give you unrevealed information, yet they can't remember revealed information?
So there's two levels of ancestors. There's there's the sheeps who are the dark deceased. They are the venerated, respected ancestors who actually, essentially, you were honorable enough to be considered, um, let's just say, a shep. And then there's ancestors who do not pretty much add anything to your bloodline. They're not considered an ancestor that we would highly respect, or let alone build a. Right? So I have levels of my ancestors: biological and spiritual. Right, ancestors that I'm connected to spiritually that I don't know, and then ancestors that I'm connected to through bloodline. Ultimately, my highest ancestor will be the Most High. Right, that's where I come. Right,
So Ramon,
that's
let me ask you a question.
Can
that's
I
my
ask you? Can
so
I
so
say
so
this
So
right quick?
that and
Which
if I
go
could
wait,
land
let
my
Ramon
ancestors.
finish. Go ahead, Ramon. I'm sorry.
If I could land, my ancestors range from the Most High, right, all the way down to physical bloodline. But clearly, the physical bloodline people, not only could they have lived a life where they did not garner wisdom to pass on, but some of them, the further we go back, lived a life in which we can access their data, access their memory, access the ability to communicate with them, and to be able to help us in real time. So there's different levels to it, essentially, for who we're communicating with.
And I appreciate that. I'm gonna let you go, King DNA. And Ramon, what's your source for that? Is that something that you experienced directly, or did you also learn that from something? Where did you get this knowledge from? Are you an initiate somewhere? Was it passed down to you? Was it given to you orally? Is it in written form somewhere? Where can we get that knowledge that you have as well, so we can
Well,
examine it?
And real quick, and real quick, Ramar, you can talk because I'm not trying to take away from what Divine said. My only point was, if I tell you something, Ramar, and you ask me about what I said previously, kind of like we did earlier when I was talking to you about a discussion we had yesterday, if you can't remember what you told me within 5 minutes or within the last 2 to 5 years, why would I trust you to tell me what's going to happen within the next 10 or 20?
I mean, I think
That's
for
it.
you, that's for you to decide, right? If you're tapping into an ancestor
But
that
I feel, but is that a logical? For sure, I
it's
respect that.
logical.
But is that a logical? Okay, cool.
Very
Oh,
lot.
okay.
And I don't know if you've heard of hoodoo, but if any of you all have spoken to hoodoo practitioner, that's someone who uses the Bible, but they practice ancestor veneration,
Correct.
specifically a black culture. They'll tell you all ancestors are not good, are not, and all ancestors are not bad, but you got to be selective on who you communicate with.
Because then
Communicate with.
because then your
All right.
Don't they
experience could
do
be
that
good
in
or bad.
Santeria also?
Yeah, yeah. So it's a facade on the surface of a Judeo-Christian religion, but it has representations to ancient ancestral cultural practices in Western Central Africa. In this case, the Fan peoples.
And also my reference divine would be, I can't say I've heard my ancestors speak. I can say I've only, what I experienced directly is to be a indicator or a signal or a signifier of me communicating with them. And I believe it was an ancestor. I don't believe I've ever directly, I can't say I've ever directly talked to a deity specifically. And then also the Metal Netter series would be my scholarship. That would be my reference. And that is considered by Ra Unefer Amen. The reason why it was created was a initiatory system.
There
So
you go. Thank you,
that
my brother. Thank you. Thank you. That's all I
Right,
wanted
and
to know. And
go ahead,
go
go
ahead,
ahead.
go ahead, Dre.
No, I was going to say, and where that you're referencing, Ramar, does this suggest? And because I got it right here too. Where does
Yep.
it suggest that the deities that you invoke or whatnot may not recall what they've said or stated or done in the past?
I don't think I don't think I said that a deity doesn't have good memory.
Okay, all right. Well, maybe I misunderstood you. I apologize. Maybe I misheard you. Well, why would you ask Divine if he thinks his own grandmother, or as far as the spiritual energy, if she recalls what she said, if you've never come across any literature from your perspective that suggests that she wouldn't?
Well, so I'm assuming that his grandma would be a normal woman. I don't think she would be is she venerated, Divine?
Yeah, I can't
No,
answer that.
she's not
No, she's
venerated.
not.
Mm-mm.
So
Yeah, I know. I know the terms
And,
you're
can, and for
speaking. So,
what does venerated mean, just for the audience and people
like
like me, because I honestly don't know what that means.
I from what the way I understand a venerated ancestor is a human
Hmm.
being accomplished enough. They brought
correct.
enough value to the world that they are respected and communicated with and held to a you're essentially, I don't want to say no, not worshipped, but you are
I can
Yeah, let
understand.
me
Remembered,
give hold on. Let me give
remembered,
an
Right,
example,
right.
Dre.
remembered.
Dre, like
I understand.
Abraham, Isaac,
Okay.
Jacob, and Judeo Christianity,
it would
that
be
would be a form of ancestor veneration, or like even
Hmm.
Shango. Shango from Ifa tradition, he was a royal king, right? Who
Hmm.
then became a venerated ancestor, and he joined
Right.
the pantheon of the Orisha, right? So that's what he means when he says she venerated. And I said no, because I know my grandmother was not venerated, so
Right.
she's not in that category. I just want to confirm that to you, Ramon, and explain that to the audience.
Okay, so with that being said, though, real quick, and then you take back off from all, where are you referencing that says that that's the prerequisite to
and
recall any type of information anyway? Let's say she was or she wasn't. What are you citing or what are you referencing to say? Let's say he would have said, yeah, she's venerated. What are you citing or referencing to say that, yeah, if you're venerated, you may not recall past information? You know what I'm saying? Or things that took place in the past.
I just inquiring about why he asked the question that he
Okay,
asked.
okay,
Is
gotcha. All
this
right.
is his understanding of mediumship and communicating with the ancestors? Is his understanding that the medium or the person, the practitioner, should be able to tell you what your ancestor answer is in real time? Is that your understanding of how?
Correct. And see, the thing is, all mediums cannot uh let me see the best way I could say it, cannot confer that, right? Because different mediums have different access, right? And it all depends on your level of being an initiate, what was handed down to you, what access that you have an individual, what you call, are you requested by these deities or these ancestors to speak on their behalf, right? So I don't know what Royal was saying. He didn't really give me a lot of information on his credentials, right? So that's why I threw it out there. I wanted to see how he handled it, and it seemed to me that he's not authentic, right? In the sense where he does not hold a role in office where he can commune that information, because he would have simply went through his ritual and he would have done it for us while we were speaking. Everybody can't do that, and some practitioners, it takes some days or weeks to get you an answer,
Is
right?
this the access
Everybody.
the Akashic records? Is that what we're discussing here? I mean, I'm really naive at this, so I'm just asking because it's bringing some of that to
I'm not
mind.
sure. Yeah, I'm not
The
certain.
Akashic records,
Well, that's some.
Not
Yeah.
mediums.
necessarily,
No.
but I to a
Because
degree,
if
but
that's the
it.
case, they're not. If you're accessing the Akashic records on the spiritual end, that's supposed to bring you out of the sea of forgetfulness,
Mm.
and that's why all of the spirits have access to the same
Yeah. Now,
information.
Sister Stephanie,
Demons
just so
also.
you
Is that
know,
correct,
yeah,
or am
just so
I
you
way off?
know, the Ashkate records, we don't even have the source for that, right? That's the first thing. The second thing, and this is why I'm very particular and meticulous when I ask a question. Whenever somebody gives me information about something or say that they are something, I try to figure out what culture, because what we've done in 2022, we have amalgamated a whole bunch of cultural practices to create this new age nuance of how we are disseminating things to be done. And to me, it becomes very confusing. For example, the initial question asks about Matthew chapter 17 and Luke about Jesus going to the mountaintop. I'm trying to deal with it within the context that the primary text is explaining it. and using the cultural social memory that these Jews would have had from what we call the Tanakh. That is within that context, right? But if I answer it according to that cultural context, the historical context, the linguistic context, and I answer the question and somebody says, oh no, but over here it says this is what necromancy is. And this culture over here says, but I'm like, but you're talking about this text. This text is not dealing with those other cultures or those other forms of knowledge.
Right,
They're dealing with a
right.
specific range of knowledge. And if you want me to answer a question based on the text, then I have to use the text and exegete it properly so you understand what's going on. And I can't conflate it with outside information because that would have no bearing on the authors of this text.
That makes
And that's
sense.
why
So,
I try to be specific. Yeah, I try to be specific. And I think this was
so
LB was saying. So if somebody told me today, hey, I spoke to my ancestors in a dream, and then they
Hmm.
jump into the Bible and say, what about this here? I said, wait, hold on.
Right.
There's two separate, unrelated events. Your phenomenon is one thing that we have to analyze and look into, and what's
Hmm.
happening in this text is a separate phenomenon. In order to parallel it, or all of us to make a comparative study, I have to be able to get all the details and factors about your personal experience before I can set up a profile to compare it to what I've already created or what people have already done with this text. You
So
see? So
divine.
that's, go ahead. I'm sorry, Dre. Go ahead.
No, you good.
Now
No, no,
I
I'm
got the
asking
answer.
you.
I
This
see.
is
I got you, Divine. My bad. Now I understand what you were
Now you
saying.
cool, Manny.
Got
so
you.
You cool,
divine. My
bro.
question is, and this is a rhetorical
Can
question.
I get in the
If you
queue?
if you're tapping to if you yeah, if you're tapping into the ancients, divine, how do you know that you're actually talking to your loved ones if they don't remember
Yeah,
nothing?
so that's the thing. So, and that's why I ask these adepts or initiates, people who claim to be clairvoyants or mediums. That's why I had to ask them, what's your source? Because they
Right.
got
My
to tell
bad.
me I was initiated by this right, by this master, this Baba, this individual initiated me. It's an authentic priesthood
Right.
or an authentic whatever they want to call it, and you can research it, right? It goes back to the source,
Right.
etc. And this is the practice we use. See, you got to say that every culture had different ways to commune with the dead. There is some congruence, but there's enough nuances that you have to look at which culture we're dealing with. Like, am I dealing with Mayan culture? Or are we dealing
Right.
with Kemetic culture? There's nuances there. You can
Yeah.
say, yeah, there's pyramids everywhere, but there's different purposes. For example, you made
And Devon,
sacrifices on the top of the Mayan pyramid. You didn't do that in Egypt. So even though you do see things on the surface that look like they're congruent, when you go into enough nuance and you deduce it down, you'll see that there's different purposes behind it. And that's simply what I was trying to hone in on.